Ram Niwas vs. Bano Air 2000 SC 2921. Ram Niwas vs. Bano is an important judgment of the Supreme Court of India dealing with the law relating to permanent injunction, title disputes, and the principle that injunction cannot be granted against the true owner. The case clearly explains that a person who is not the lawful owner cannot seek an injunction merely on the basis of possession, especially when the title of the defendant is clear. This case is frequently cited in matters relating to injunctions under the Specific Relief Act, 1963, particularly sections 38 and 41. Facts of the case. The dispute in this case was related to immovable property. The plaintiff, Bano, filed a suit seeking a permanent injunction to restrain the defendant, Ram Niwas, from interfering with her possession of the property. Bano claimed that she was in possession of the property and, on that basis, sought protection from the court. However, she did not have valid legal title over the property. Ram Niwas, the defendant, contended that he was the true and lawful owner of the property and that the plaintiff was in unauthorized possession. Despite this, the lower courts granted injunction in favor of Bano. Aggrieved by these orders, Ram Niwas approached the Supreme Court of India, challenging the grant of injunction against him. Issues before the court. The main issues before the Supreme Court were whether a person who is merely in possession of property, without having lawful title, can seek a permanent injunction against the true owner. Whether courts can grant injunction to protect unauthorized or unlawful possession when ownership of the property is clearly established in favor of the defendant. Whether injunction, being an equitable and discretionary relief, should be granted without examining the title of the parties. Judgment of the court. The Supreme Court of India allowed the appeal filed by Ram Niwas and set aside the judgments of the lower courts. The court decided the case in favor of the true owner, Ram Niwas, and refused to grant permanent injunction to Bano. The court observed that Bano had no lawful title over the property and was only claiming relief on the basis of possession. The Supreme Court held that when the ownership of property is clearly proved, a person in unauthorized or unlawful possession cannot seek an injunction against the true owner. The court emphasized that injunction is an equitable and discretionary relief, and such relief cannot be granted to protect illegal possession or to defeat the lawful rights of the owner. The lower courts had committed an error by granting injunction without properly considering the issue of title. Accordingly, the Supreme Court vacated the injunction and upheld the rights of the true owner. Decision of the court. The Supreme Court held that injunction cannot be granted against the true owner of the property. A person who has no legal title cannot restrain the rightful owner merely on the basis of possession. When title is clear, the court should not grant injunction in favor of a person who is in unauthorized or unlawful possession. Courts must examine ownership rights before granting permanent injunction. Legal principles laid down. Injunction cannot be granted against true owner. A lawful owner has a better right than a person in mere possession. Possession alone is not enough. Mere possession without title does not entitle a person to injunction against the owner. Importance of title in injunction suits. When title is clear, courts should not protect unlawful possession through injunction. Limitation on equitable relief. Injunction is an equitable and discretionary relief and must be granted only to deserving parties. Relevance to the Specific Relief Act, 1963. This case is closely connected with Section 38, Perpetual Injunction to Protect Lawful Rights. Section 41, H, Injunction must be refused when equally effective remedy exists. Equitable principles governing injunctions. The judgment supports the rule that injunction should not be misused to defeat lawful ownership. Importance of the case. This case is important because it clearly establishes that injunction cannot be granted against the true owner of property. The Supreme Court clarified that a person who is only in possession, without having lawful title, cannot restrain the rightful owner through a permanent injunction. The judgment highlights the equitable and discretionary nature of injunctions. It emphasizes that courts must carefully examine the title of the parties before granting injunction and should not protect unauthorized or illegal possession. The case also helps in understanding the difference between possession and ownership, which is a common issue in property disputes. It prevents misuse of injunctions by persons trying to defeat the rights of lawful owners. Legal significance. Protects rights of the true owner. Clarifies limits on permanent injunction. Reinforces Sections 38 and 41 of the Specific Relief Act, 1963. Prevents misuse of equitable remedies. Frequently cited in LLB exams and property law cases. Conclusion. The decision in Niwas v. Bano is a landmark judgment which firmly establishes that injunction cannot be used to protect unlawful or unauthorized possession. The Supreme Court made it clear that ownership and lawful title prevail over mere possession, and a person without title cannot restrain the true owner through a permanent injunction. The case reinforces the principle that injunction is an equitable and discretionary relief, to be granted only when the plaintiff has a valid legal right and approaches the court with fairness. This judgment plays a vital role in preventing misuse of injunctions in property disputes and is highly relevant for understanding Sections 38 and 41 of the Specific Relief Act, 1963, making it an important case civil law practice.